Ian Garry takes on Carlos Prates next week, and it's going to be the main event of UFC Kansas City. Today, I'll be giving my breakdown and giving my prediction on the fight. Look, I've had a hard time with this fight. I'll tell you guys, coming off a great main event pick with Alexander Volkanovski, I've had a hard time with this one. I've gone back and forth on each side multiple times, and I'm nervous because if I would have recorded my video yesterday, which I said I was going to do, I actually would have picked a different fighter to win than I'm picking today, which is crazy, but I think I got my pick locked in. Okay. When you look at the odds of this fight, Ian Garry, who opened up at plus 110 when the fight was announced, he's now minus 134. The fight sat at a pick 'em for a good bit. Ian Garry is starting to widen the gap here. But yeah, man, let's hop right into this breakdown. Carlos Prates, I'll talk about first. 31 years old, I'm sorry. 6'1" with a 78-inch reach. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here, which is going to benefit him here. He's got long legs, short torso, long arms, the best build for MMA. Look, man, Carlos Prates 4-0 in the UFC, 4 KOs in the UFC. A little bit of a hiccup in his first fight with Trevin Giles, but sometimes you get Trevin Giles who looks very good, and sometimes you get Trevin Giles who looks very bad. Automatically, some of the things that Trevin Giles did to have success in that fight was extending combinations, using his boxing, and really extending combinations, not letting Carlos Prates get settled in. He was throwing a lot of left hooks, putting the pressure on him and constantly throwing, not giving him opportunities to set these big shots up. And that's what he had success early on in. And he won the first, was kind of on his way to winning the second round, ultimately got caught with a big left hand and put out cold. And that's kind of what Carlos Prates does, man. His left hand, it's powerful. It's very dangerous, man. There's like dynamite in that left. And it's not only, it's hard, it's fast. He's very precise, man. He does not miss his shots. And what I notice about Carlos Prates is it feels like every single shot the guy throws, he's connecting. He lands. You know what I mean? And that's something really important. The accuracy on this guy is incredible. The whole left side of his body, you're going to have to be careful of. The knees, the kicks, the elbows, the left hand, most importantly. And I think that this guy's best matchups are going to be against orthodox fighters, and he's got one in front of him in Ian Garry. He's got a nice right hook, does Prates. He'll cut the cage off with that right hook, bring you kind of into that left. He'll, throw the right hook, and you'll move to the left. He'll bring you into that left hand or left high kick. He's very dangerous, man. This guy wants to come forward. He wants to put you on the back foot, and once he kind of makes his reads, sets his shots up, you're in trouble. He's got a crazy ability to just finish the fight. Nasty step-in knees that are just very nice, very nice. He'll use them very good, and they're punishing, man. Floored Charles Radke with one, and Charles Radke's actually a damn good fighter, a pretty good fighter at welterweight, and got rid of him in the first round, had him in all sorts of trouble. But by far, this is going to be the biggest test for Carlos Prates in his career, UFC career, and in his career in general, because he's got a guy who's well balanced, who can do everything, who's smart, who has good speed, good athleticism. He's young and he's confident, man. This is why I've had a hard time with this fight, because I think that Prates is very dangerous, but he hasn't fought someone like Ian Garry. When you look at Prates, he's got, pretty solid striking defense. He rolls with his shots well. He sees the shots coming. Very good vision. And honestly, guys, the biggest question mark of Carlos Prates is his takedown defense, which is, look, granted, he's not faced the best wrestlers or the best, but it's looked pretty damn good so far. Charles Radke, I know I keep talking about him. He's a pretty solid wrestler, man. He's nothing to play with on the ground. The guy is a decent wrestler. I would probably put him, I want to say in the top 60% of the wrestlers at welterweight, I'd put Charles Radke in, and stuffed both takedowns from him. He stuffed a good amount of takedowns in his UFC career. And I think when I looked at Carlos Prates on the regional scene where he did struggle, it was when people got him to the ground. Getting back up when people got him to the ground was his biggest issues. But defending the takedowns, if he's able to defend it, I mean, he's very good at doing it, And I don't necessarily know if Ian Garry's going to be able to get him to the ground. Some cons or some bad things I don't like about Carlos Prates is I don't think he's the best off the back foot. I think that if you're able to pressure this guy, which is hard, but you can do it. If you're able to establish the takedown, he's going to want to use that fence to, have a safety to get up. If you're able to put him on the back foot, he's not as good. You can kind of see him loading up on his shots. He doesn't use his footwork that much. Putting him on the back foot is something that's going to help anybody. You know what I mean? When people extend combinations, Carlos Prates is still kind of there. He rolls with the shots and he doesn't take that much damage, but you could see it in the Trevin Giles fight. I mean, there was damage on his face, but he was still rolling with the shots. He has struggled with the grappling as well. If you go back to a regional fight, or not a regional fight, I think it was actually on ONE FC, he got dominated by this like Dagestani wrestler. I don't remember his name, but I don't even know if he fights anymore. But he got dominated by him, like just put on the back foot, just double legged every single time, and wasn't able to get up or do much at all from his back. So if you're able to get him on his back, he's not the best there. Obviously the guy trains with the Fighting Nerds. They come up with great game plans. They're a great gym. A little bit overrated and a way too marketed a lot. I don't appreciate it because there's fighters that they don't talk about. Bruno Brazil, Kyan Kershevsky, who lost to Kurt Hollowell. Those are Fighting Nerds, right? They've lost fights. They're not 18-0 like it quote unquote says in the graphics or whatever. So I don't like seeing that. But obviously the guy doesn't have any 5-round experience in MMA. We don't know how good his cardio is. Really, we really don't know. But yeah, man, Prates looks pretty solid from what I've seen. He's a very good fighter, very good striker. But let's hop in to Ian Garry, who another great fighter. Ian Garry, to me, solid footwork, great speed. He's a solid athlete. He's got good low kicks. He's got good punches. His jab is very nice. He's got good IQ. Obviously, the BJJ has improved tremendously. You saw him taking Rakhmonov's back is impressive. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not impressive. It is. But we haven't really got to see much of his offensive wrestling aside from the MVP fight, which doesn't do that much for me. I think that Prates is a much better defensive wrestler than MVP is. Ian moves his head well. He's just a smart fighter. He knows how to win fights, and that's what's makes him dangerous here. Is he knows how to win fights. I'm sorry, but I'll say this about Ian Garry, especially recently, man. I've not been happy with the way he's approached fights. I think that when I've watched Ian Garry, especially in these, last couple fights, or even whenever Ian Garry's in front of a guy that hits hard or he is powerful and with a lot of finishes, Ian Garry doesn't really fight the same. He's not that same aggressive pep in the step, just like 1-2, really aggressive, nice kicks. He doesn't do all that much. There's a lot of times where he's pondering, sitting at range, just not throwing anything and letting people get ahead. And that was ultimately the problem in the fight with, Rakhmonov, is Rakhmonov just got ahead. And in the fight with Jeff Neal, could have gotten ahead if he would have thrown more. So I think that Ian Garry, while he's a great fighter, he's very skilled, I don't necessarily like how he's been fighting. And I think it's because of all the camp switches. He's gone all over the place. He was at Team Renegade for a little while. He was at, Kill Cliff. He's at Shoot Box. He's been to Thailand. He's all over the damn place, so his style is constantly changing. And I think that, Ian Garry, he's going to look to make Carlos Prates, kind of extend this fight. I think that's and stay safe and try to work in these takedowns and see, kind of if he can make Carlos Prates gas a little bit. But man, I just don't know if Ian's going to be able to do what he wants to. I think he's going to lack aggressiveness, and that's going to be a problem for me. Obviously Ian Garry, he's typically got good volume, but these shots aren't hard shots, right? They're not really damaging shots. I think the more damaging strikes are going to come from Prates, but the volume is going to come from Garry, in my opinion. He's going to try to get this fight to the mat. I think that he's going to, try multiple times to get it down. I don't know if he'll be able to, but it's going to be a good test for him. His cardio is very good. Ian Garry can go 5 rounds. He can push the pace. And also Ian Garry can skirt around the octagon for 5 rounds and have no problem with it, which is really important, right? It's going to be on Ian Garry to not get cut off and not get hit by the big shots. I think that if Ian Garry wants to win this fight, he's going to need to be aggressive. And I just don't see it from him. So you guys know who I'm picking. I'm picking Carlos Prates. I got my pick out quick for y'all. I'm going to go over why I think Carlos Prates is going to win. I pretty much just summed it up. I think that Ian Garry is going to be on the outside of the octagon, on the back foot, where, bonus, by the way, Carlos Prates, all of his finishes are coming when he's on the front foot or when he's got you pressed up on the cage. You can go check that in the UFC. Every single one of them. He loves to fight there, and that's where Ian Garry's going to want to fight. He cuts the cage off very well. It's going to be a lot harder for Carlos Prates to cut off the cage against Ian Garry because he does have better movement than these guys like Li Jing Liang, right? He's got better movement than Neil Magny, right? Or Trevin Giles. Ian Garry is very good footwork. He can move around very well and find those counter shots. So that's why I don't expect this to be an easy fight. But the damaging striking is going to be coming from Prates. The finishing power is going to be coming from Prates. And I think the lack of aggressiveness I've recently seen from Ian Garry is not going to help him. He likes to land these little shots, to the knees, like oblique kicks and inside low kicks or front kicks, but they don't come all the time. They don't come all the time. He's got a good jab, but he doesn't let his hands go in front of these power punchers, and that's what's going to cause him problems here. Now, I think this is a winnable fight for both guys, but I'm just going off what I've seen, and specifically as of recently from Ian Garry is not letting his hands go. I think if his plan is to go in here and take down Prates and ragdoll him, when has Ian Garry ever done that? Ian Garry is a striker. He's an MMA fighter, but he's a striker mainly. He's not a wrestler, really. I'd be surprised, honestly, guys, if he's able to get Prates down. I could see something in the clinch potentially. I know Ian Garry kind of has a judo background. Maybe something in the clinch. But if it's out in the open or if it's like a double leg, I just don't think it'll happen. I don't think it'll happen. I think that Prates, his takedown defense is going to be good enough to stuff what Ian Garry's got. I think Radke's a better grappler better wrestler than Ian Garry. I think that Trevin Giles is probably a better pure wrestler than Ian Garry. I think that Ian Garry, man, like I said, if he wants to win this fight, he's got to let his hands go. He cannot be passive in there. You got to bring the fight to this guy. And like I said, if his plan is to gas Carlos Prates out, it won't happen if he's just sitting there not doing anything. He needs to work in the clinch, or he needs to let his hands go because he's a good striker. He's a good boxer. He can fight with Prates. I have no doubt about that. But if he is hesitating to let his hands go, he's not going to win, and he might get knocked out. Another thing about Ian Garry, in his debut fight, which I know I'm an asshole for referencing this, but he's fought a southpaw in his debut fight, and he was getting tagged up a lot by him. I know he fought a southpaw in D-Rod and knocked him out very fast, but I don't know. It's D-Rod, man. I don't know. I'll give him credit for that one, but like the amount of times I see him, throw naked inside low kicks to southpaws, get cracked by the left hand, I'm worried for Garry, man. I don't like Ian Garry because of what he did to Neil Magny, but I also don't like Carlos Prates either. So, this to me, man, it's a tight fight. It really is. But some other things I've seen from Ian Garry in his defense, he likes to duck his head, specifically when he's on the fence, right? If somebody is closing distance on him, trying to land combinations, he will duck his head. And you know what I'm about to say, all right? You know what I'm about to say. I'm about to say Carlos Prates is going to blast him with a knee right in the jaw, right to the skull. And that's something else I fear. I've seen Ian Garry duck down to grab a clinch or duck down to get out of the way of punches. Prates, man, I'm telling you, if he's on that fence, if he's got you on that fence and you're not moving your feet a lot, or even if you are, he's able to cut you off. He's going to knock you out. I think that obviously it's a tight fight. It's also short notice for Ian Garry. Man, I've had a hard time with this one, guys, but I am going to go with Carlos Prates. I don't necessarily know if he'll get a knockout, but I am going to pick him just to win the fight. Man, it's a tough one, guys. I've really had a hard time with this one. So let me know what you've got, who you've got in the comments, and give me your reasoning. And that's going to wrap it up for me. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.